get me? In the garage with Phonetix and BrainZ.
Yes, mate.
Yes, mate. We're back.
We are
finally
back once again. Welcome to In the Garage. I am BrainZ, live from the BrainZ cave.
And I am Phonetix, channeling my inner Dexter over here, as you rightly pointed out, BrainZ.
I saw the Dark Passenger from a mile off, mate. It's
I've been playing catch up on the series in anticipation of the new one, so I thought I'd dress the part.
That's it. You educated me. I did not know there was a new series of Dexter. This is not going to become the Dexter cast, luckily. But yeah, I'd be up all over that. I did enjoy it originally. What's been happening, man?
I've been busy, mate. Super busy. Just churning out the tunes and yeah, all the usuals, man. How about you?
Been watching my laptop cry. Probably see much delay going on if you're watching the video version of this. I am desperately awaiting the next iteration of the Mac M1 processor, so whatever is it, like the M2 or the M1X, whatever it'll be, so I can get a fancy new MacBook Pro and have this shit running smoother than a baby covered in butter, I suppose. I don't know.
I wish I could do more to help, man, but you are the figurative and literal brains here when it comes to the tech side of things. I'm good with audio, but like when it comes to that video stuff, it's all above my pay grade, mate.
Mate, it's just say, I've seen your YouTube videos. Don't give it all that. I've watched how to make two-step drums in 10 minutes. I've been there.
Oh, you watched that? You watched that, did you? I got approached by Serato recently. They're going to get me onto their. I don't know if you've ever seen on their Twitch stream, their YouTube channel. They've got Serato's Kitchen.
No.
Don't know if you've seen that. It's like one of those production masterclass things. They have somebody go down to their studio and make a tune, and then people kind of interact with them and watch whilst they're doing it. So their European artist relations guy contacted me, like heard some of my stuff, and he was like, "Oh man, like we'd love to get you on Serato's Kitchen." So I'll be going down to do that in a couple of months' time. Make a bit of garage.
Wicked things.
Should be interesting. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. I would have mentioned that to you actually.
Yeah. Oh, well,
all good.
This all comes out in conversation. Lovely, jubbly.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, not much change with me since I last see you. I've got a hot tub. I'm now a hot tub wanker. Full-blown hot tub wanker. Most stupid fucking decision my electricity bill has ever made. It's an inflatable one, so it's only the council model, and yeah, it costs a fucking fortune to run. If you're gonna buy an inflatable hot tub, just be aware that it's minimum like £3 a day in electric before you've even sat in the thing.
Mate, I would imagine your electric bill's quite high as it is with all the gadgets you've got.
Mate,
you know, before you even introduce a hot tub.
I mean, don't get me started. I already had a row with Bulb because they were double charging me over some shit. You know what?
Oh, mate.
That's for another podcast on another network. It's been a while since we last caught up, and there's been some amazing music out there. You said originally, it's difficult to pick the top 3 tunes this time around, and you told me I had a short list of 20.
Do you know what? Like when you said like if you picked your tunes, and I was just kind of like, oh yeah, I didn't feel this month was as strong a month for garage as previous months, and then yeah, like you say, I loaded up my list and I was like, actually I retract that statement because I've got loads here to choose from. I think the difficulty I had was in previous months when we've done the podcast, there'd been some real obvious standouts, whereas this month it was there were just lots of decent tunes, and it was kind of a bit more of a struggle to pick the 3 that really jumped out at me, but I've just about managed it, I think. So hopefully some stuff in there that you agree with.
We've got a nice strong lineup, definitely. We've been trying to modernise, so we're getting a little preview of what we're hearing beforehand, which is it's a shame. It's like logistically to make it sound best for the podcast when we're live, I have to know all the tunes that's being played, so we might as well have to share beforehand. But I did like that when we was doing it originally, and it was like, right, you don't know what this tune is, and it was the first kind of glance, but
we were like surprising each other, wasn't it? It was like who could psych the other one out best. Whereas now, we kind of go in predisposed, as it were.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll have to work that out for another day. Should we crack into the top 3 showdown? Should we go for it?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think your first pick, you've gone for something dropped on Lush Records.
Yes, I have. I've been waiting, eagerly anticipating this one dropping for a while now, because Martin actually contacted me some time ago with this track, and then obviously it took a bit of time for him to get it signed, and then sort of onto Lush's release schedule, because obviously they're quite a busy label. But yeah, I think it dropped. We're probably going back about 4 weeks now. I think it was towards the end of June. Just a great two-step track. I'm not going to talk too much. Let's get into it first and then we can discuss it. This is Martin Buchanan. Cut This Tie. It's available everywhere now via Lush Records.
Got this tie, nah, nah. J. Hey, nah, nah. J. Hey, nah, nah. J. Hey, nah, nah. J. 1, 2, 2. I'm a mic check. Nah, nah. Nah, nah.
Has it dropped yet?
Now you're cutting in there early, mate.
Even if I told you, not my thing. This isn't mine. Keep it clean. Got this tie. Not my thing. Let's get the fine. Let's keep it clean. Got this tie. Nah, nah.
Decent.
It's lovely, man. It's lovely. It's just a lovely musical vibe. Do you know what I mean? At a time where lockdown restrictions are kind of lifted and everyone's kind of moving back towards making real dance floor centric club tracks. There's been a lot of kind of dubs coming out recently, aren't there, in anticipation of the clubs reopening. It's nice to have something that's a really strong musical basis to it, and I think that's obviously Martin's very obvious forte is the fact that he's, in a lot of respects he's old school, and that goes down to the instrumentation, the way he's writing. It's a nice song, it's a nice vocal. The Spanish guitar is brilliant. He's a very talented guitarist. He's got those lovely pizzicato strings in there. Even the way the track's been produced, it's got a real nostalgic turn of the century kind of vibe to it. And obviously I know we like to discuss forward thinking tunes on here a lot, and this probably doesn't fall into that category because it's nothing that hasn't been done before, but it's just done exceptionally well. Just flawless. There's nothing I can fault about it. I heard the track, and it's one of those tracks, like he got in contact with me after hearing my album, and he was like, I really like your kind of jazzy vibe. I think you'll like some of what I'm kind of doing. And I didn't really have a basis for what I was going to hear other than that. So I perhaps underestimated how good it was going to be, and I hit play, and I remember I just went, fucking hell, like that's really, turn of the century. If you had dropped this, that would have really turned heads. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of everything about it, it's spot on. So props to Martin, because it's a shame it took so long to come out. It's my only complaint about it, but I'm glad it's finally dropped.
Is it him on the vocal as well?
It's him on the vocal. It's him on the guitar. It's produced by him. He's one of those like multi-talented people. And I know, like I've spoken to him a lot, and he said, like, in terms of the vocals, he's like, I'm not a vocalist, and he was like, you're not going to catch me doing live PAs of that in a club anytime soon because I'm not a singer. He was like, maybe that vocal recording there is like the 30th or 40th take before I get it sounding how I want to. But he was like, in terms of like being in the studio and being able to write a song, strong. Like I think what he alluded to with me was that actually, like, he had obviously that backing and he would have liked to have got somebody else to come do the vocals, but because it was written smack bang in the middle of lockdown, that wasn't a possibility. And he went, do you know what? I reckon I can hold a note. I'll do it myself. And actually, like, what he's come out with, like, that vocal is really, it's like a strong vocal as well. Do you know what I mean? Everything, all the little elements of that track, every single part of it is strong. It's engineered well. Like even the way the drums are programmed in, that bass line. And like I said, like the guitar is brilliant. The guitar's brilliant. Like he's an exceptionally good guitarist. Like he posts up clips of himself on Instagram. If you're not following him already, go and follow him, because he does like little, here's me playing my guitar, and you can tell he's got musical skills. And I think it's just nice. It's just nice because there's a lot of people making music. There's a lot of producers around, and it's always refreshing to hear something from somebody who comes from that kind of old school musical background. Not necessarily, it doesn't instantly make them better or anything like that. But like if you look at people like MJ and Sunship, do you know what I mean? It adds a certain something extra into their tracks that perhaps other people who don't have that musical background lack in their tracks. And that's not to say that they're instantly better because of it, but it's like a different side of UKG. Do you know what I mean? Like you've got a lot of people, like I said, making dubs and stuff that is engineered really well and kind of hits the dance floor, and it kind of sounds quite topical. And that track, Cut This Tie, you wouldn't put it into that bracket, but you would go, well, actually, do you know what? That's brilliant. Like musically, that's really good. So it's just nice to kind of shine a light on that, and because it's that side of garage, which I think probably at the moment, with all of the clubs reopening and the DJs kind of making their selections, they're obviously all picking. I've seen a lot of the clips that people are uploading, like, oh, here's my first gig back in Clubland, and a lot of it's quite bass heavy, and I get that, you know, certain things work better on the dance floor, but it's nice to have the option to look at something like that and have that kind of that full spectrum of UKG, because, you know, from my personal subjective, my taste, that kind of thing is more to my liking than perhaps more of the kind of club dance floor heavy stuff.
Yeah, that Spanish guitar, it gives me like Delinquent vibes. Like,
interesting you say Delinquent. Yeah. Do you know, I instantly thought of Back Up, Wookie and Lane.
I see.
It's definitely got
there.
a kind of it's got that kind of Lane vibe to it, isn't it? You know, what he used to do with his Spanish guitar as well.
Yeah. That was the only bit that ruined that tune for me. Do you know that? Because I like the club part of it, and then I felt like the Spanish guitar on Back Up to me brought it down a bit. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See,
I don't know.
Back up, or Back Up to me. I think I probably prefer the dub, just because I was familiar with the dub, and then the vocal was kind of added at a later date, wasn't it? That's probably one of my favourite tracks of all time.
Really?
One of the things I liked about it was the Spanish guitar and also the violin in that as well. Like it was a prime example of what I was just saying, like in terms of those kind of musical elements, just kind of really, I think that was what set Wookie apart at that time. Do you know what I mean? Because
I don't know why. It just literally, when I used to hear that, it used to be like, hang on, that shouldn't be there. It was just it sits in Martin's tune there, sits beautifully, and I think it's great, absolutely great work on that for sure. But yeah, I don't know why. Just randomly,
perhaps it's because it's a bit out of kilter with what everyone else does. Because you don't hear that often in garage, do you? Do you know what I mean? I think it's probably fair to say there aren't a lot of people who are technically proficient in terms of producing who can also then pick up a guitar and do that. That's probably why you don't hear it so often. And as a result of that, it's kind of a slightly unusual texture to hear. So maybe that was the thing. Especially at the turn of the century with Wookie as well. Do you know what I mean? Because Wookie was kind of known for those kind of those shuffled syncopated beats, and they were quite tough sounding. And his sound kind of had that kind of, it always had that moogie bass going on in it, didn't it? Do you know what I mean? It was quite, Wookie kind of appealed to a certain demographic, and he kind of trod a line really well between doing stuff that was kind of technically quite sharp, but also kind of had a kind of raw edge to it. So for him to come with something that had that kind of real light musical tone to it, maybe that was at odds with what you were hearing at the time.
I don't know.
You didn't like it because of that. I don't know.
I mean, it didn't jar on me when I heard it in the Circus remix, the Delinquent remix of Circles. It didn't jar on me in there. It is in that tune, right? I'm sure that's the tune I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I think it is. There was a few Delinquent productions that had, because Mike's he's a very proficient guitarist, isn't he? And he did it later in some of the Mike Delinquent project stuff. And then I think a lot of the productions he did for Cat as well. They were acoustic and they were kind of Spanish guitar led, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, and anyway, not to take anything away from this tune. I like it. Good signing. Good signing by Lush. Said what the Cafe Hobby mix let me down on that AP, as I was saying to you before the show, because she's been doing Todd knockoffs real well. I don't know whether you want to go into anything about Cafe Hobby on this podcast.
I was just going to sort of approach in terms of the remixes in general terms. I think it's one of those tracks. It's such that the original's so strong, right, that it's really difficult to remix a track like that. It's almost I don't want to sound negative by saying it was pointless getting it remixed, because obviously you do a remix, you're going to take a track to slightly different kind of corners of the market, right? That's the idea of getting remixes done. But like a track like that, it almost doesn't need a remix. You know what I mean? I feel like it's strong enough to stand on its own 2 feet. And yeah, I heard the remixes. There was nothing wrong with any of them per se, but there was equally nothing that made me go, I would play that over the original. Like it's the original each and every time for me. But then perhaps that's partly due to my own subjective personal taste. Obviously, that track went right on my jazz step playlist, right? Because it's the type of thing I live for. So.
Yeah, I'd say it's like, because I mean the reason I've called out the Cafe Hobby one is because she's kind of up and coming at the moment. EZ, I think, brought her into the public eye, but she done like a disco house mix on this one, and I was really hoping there'd be like a strong, like garagey 4/4 mix she did,
like a 4/4
and it was just like completely different direction. I was like, oh, I saw the thing, and I didn't think who's Martin Buchanan and what's this Cut This Tie song. It was, oh, there's a Cafe Hobby remix on this, and I played that first probably, and then I was like, oh, that's a bit of a
do you know what you've just completely contradicted my there's me going, oh, you don't need remixes done, and then you've just given a perfect example of why you do need remixes done, because you like you say, it was the Cafe Hobby one that kind of grabbed your attention to start off with, although I noticed you obviously listened to the mixes and then elected to play the original on your show, didn't you?
Because it was the strongest, baddest.
It's the strongest of the one,
yeah. Let's move on. We got lots of music to get through.
Indeed, we do.
So my first pick is a free download, and I love it when this happens. So I follow these guys on SoundCloud. I love to find my freebies, my diamonds in the rough on there, and this one popped up the other week. It's by a group called Great Skies, and I like it as a modern take on the genre. So this one is Great Skies on the buttons, and it is entitled "I Don't Think About You At All."
I don't think about you at all. I don't think about you at all. Think about you, do so.
Now, I know I picked another tune before that we said could probably perfectly sit on Whistler's L2S label, and I think this is another one of them ones. Like, I hear this tune, and there was some, like, Whistler's label had some great tunes that he's put out. It's like that's a whole other era of Forgotten Garage that came after the first era of Forgotten Garage.
For sure.
But he put stuff out with I'm trying to think of some of the tunes that was on there. That Resketch was an artist that was on there loads, that had kind of stuff like this. There was another one, the name completely escapes me, but I can sing the song in my head. You know what, I'm just making a mess of it, but I know that this would have sit perfectly on this label. I just really liked it. It could, it's gone out as a freebie because it sounds like it's probably not complete. Like, there's not really much of an intro to it. If you wanted to mix it as a DJ, that's fine. I even kind of kindly asked Rob to throw this quickly for a master program because it needed a bit of a buff. But yeah, when I dropped this on radio, I think I liked it even more than when I first heard it on SoundCloud. It's just a modern take on the genre, and it doesn't sound like every two-step mix since '98, which is something that's going to instantly bring me in.
For sure. It's got a nice little 4/4 switch up in there as well, which is always welcome. I love a two-step track that kind of switches. That's why I quite often do it myself. But yeah, it's strong, man. There's something about it. It's just kind of got a vibe that kind of gets into your head. I think if I was going to be really brutal with it, I would probably say it's just a little bit too busy when it does drop for me. In terms of those, you've got those high-pitched vocal cuts. I almost feel like they could do with, even if it's just 8 bars or something, 8 or 16 bars, without those, where it just kind of lets the track breathe a bit and kind of lets the bass kind of drive it along. But all in all, yeah, it's nice, man. It's nice. I definitely hear worse tracks coming out as paid buyable tunes. So fair play to them for blessing us with a freebie. Who doesn't love a freebie? It's always going to catch our attention, isn't it? Everyone loves a freebie.
So on my mind, the L2S tunes I was thinking of, so there was a tune by Sentinels called Love Rhythm, which is a classic L2S tune if you've never heard that before. That kind of fits into this oeuvre of music. And then there was another one that I'm going to find before we move on to the next tune. Man, when was the last L2S release? 2013.
It was quite a while ago, but there was many releases to choose from, wasn't there? Let's be honest, it was prolific back then.
There's one that I was caning, and it's driving me up the wall that I can't remember who it's by. Let's move on. Anyway, that's probably my weirdest pick this week, I reckon. So we
that's
can
your kind of your out there one.
that's as out there as it gets. Well, in my additional 7, there's a real fucking wonky one in there that you'd have to challenge yourself to.
Do you know what? My choices are all pretty. I don't want to say run of the mill. That sounds like a negative. Don't mean it as a negative, but I haven't really got any kind of. What was it you referred to it? Like a wild card. I haven't got any wild cards. I'm being fairly predictable across the board this week. I think you could probably guess what I'm going to choose. But should I roll into?
I was going to say, when I used to go out with DJing once upon a time, when they actually allowed me to play in clubs, when I did my playlists of like tunes I wanted to pick from, I'd have like lively, classics, bass heavy, and then my bottom folder would be wildcard, and that'd be like my kind of random ones that I'd be scared to play, but I'd really want to play them.
Those wildcard ones are good though, because you know that you're going to have 1 or 2 reactions to those, right? It's either going to set a club off or fail miserably. I guess that's why you're scared to play them. But yeah, every now and then you're going to drop one and it's going to work out to be a gem.
and my last L2S one, it was by Delivery that had no vowels in the name, and it was called These Words. And that tune, I've absolutely rinsed that tune. You've never listened to that on L2S.
Interesting you use that as an example, because like These Words, right, really short, snappy title. I was talking about this with the wife the other day because I was rounding the track off, and it's one of those ones that's kind of built around a little vocal hook, and it was quite a wordy one, and I was like, oh yeah, I was thinking of calling it, and I can't remember what I ended up calling it. I can't remember what the vocal hook is. One of many tunes I've been churning out, but I said I was thinking of calling it this, and the wife went, you can't call it that, and it was similar to that one you just played, I Don't Think About You At All. That's quite a mouthful for a track title. There ain't many, you know you've got a strong track if you can get away with calling it something that lengthy. Anyway, I digress.
Moving on to my South Central while drinking juice in the hood.
I was drinking gin and juice in the hood. Yeah. Next one then. Are we rolling into the next one? Are we ready?
I'm just hoping that my iTunes does not completely shit the bed and keel over, but I think I'm ready to play it. You want to introduce it?
I've been itching to talk about this one for ages because I absolutely love it, and I cannot verbalise how positively I feel about it. Let's get into it. It's Marvel and Eli featuring Sharlene Hector. It's the Jade Lion 2-step mix of Learned My Lesson, and it's available now via Marvelous Records.
And iTunes is going to play it right now.
mountain is unmovable. No, you can't say no more. In my heart on a rent-free basis, I gotta let this go. Ain't going up for no back lady. Can't carry this no more. Learn my lesson the hard way, baby. I gotta let this go.
Let it go.
Ain't going up for no back lady. What to do now that the sunshine's gone and I'm standing in the rain?
I mean,
Oh, mate.
you said before the show, real Artful Dodger vibes, and I don't think I appreciated how much of that kind of vibe it's given off until I re-listened to it then with you.
Yeah. I feel like if you ever got Artful Dodger and MJ Cole in the studio together, they'd come up with something that sounded quite similar to that. It's definitely elements of MJ in those little string riffs, and then obviously you've got that kind of Artful Dodger-y guitar, and I mean the chord sequence over the chorus is just beautiful. It's just that progression's just lovely. You just don't hear that kind of thing all that often, especially in a garage track. But it's just, oh man, I could sit here and I could listen to that all day. Sharlene, fucking brilliant vocalist. She's done some great stuff over the years, and she gives a real good account of herself on that track right there. I feel bad I'm talking over Marvel's bars here. Marvel dropped some nice bars. Original's strong. I really like what Jade's done with it, taking it down that two-step avenue. Like he's one of those people, like obviously Marvel and Eli, kind of from back in the day. Jade's obviously from back in the day as well, did some big tunes back then. He's been kind of off doing that broken beat thing, as I understand. I think he's got some different aliases he uses for that. But what a great way to kind of drop back into garage with something like this, because it's just a real, like you say, it's got that Artful Dodger kind of vibe to it. It's just a real summer radio friendly track. I don't think you're going to hear it in many clubs. Do you know what I mean? Like much like the last one that we talked about, like the Martin Buchanan one, it's probably going to flop on the dance floor just because the club scene has kind of moved along a little bit and kind of moved away from that kind of vibe. But beautiful radio, sofa, cruising, listening, just brings a smile to my face every time, man.
Happy days. It's grown up. It's mature. I'd say I feel bad. I underappreciated it when I come in. When I first got it, when it first dropped into my inbox, I definitely underappreciated it. Listening back to it, kind of end to end, full on, you can really kind of get a nice feel for how much of a mature production it is. Part of that is, I think, the amount, just for me to make complete excuses here and to hope that Marvel placates me for this. My workflow for preparing for a radio show of being able to get like God knows how many hundreds of tunes down to the 48 that I play or so. You know, some of these tunes I'm not listening to for longer than 3 seconds, if that. Like, you literally have to go bang, and my ear has to say, does that fit into my microgenre? Okay, let's have a bit more of a listen, or no, move on. And I don't think I gave this enough of a chance. It's lovely. It's just well done, guys, all round. Everyone on that one, the vocal's great. The original concept's great. The bars from Marvel's amazing. Remix is nice. I don't even know if I've heard the original mix of this. You said it was 4/4, right? Yeah.
So I think the Marvel Eli original one is kind of a 4/4, a rolling 4/4 thing. It's quite bumpy. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I think obviously what Jade's done with the remix really what struck me about Jade's remix is it complements Sharlene's vocal particularly well, and that's why he's kind of approached it from a song perspective, right? It kind of goes back to what I was saying about Martin's productions as well. You know, you've got the two sides of garage, haven't you? You've got the stuff that's kind of club ready, and there's more of an emphasis on the sounds that have been used and maybe being a bit bass heavy and doing things a little bit differently. And then you've got the people who kind of go, right, let's approach this like a song, and that's what Jade's done really well there, to sort of put his spin on it. And yeah, like I say, Sharlene's she's a strong vocalist with a lot of credits to her name. The weird thing about that is as well, my missus has got a real thing for First Dates, you know, that Channel 4 program. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I've never watched it. I know of it.
You never watched it. Do you know what? In terms of car crash reality TV, it's one of the better ones. So she quite often has that on in the evenings. And weirdly, Sharlene Hector, who's on that track, was on First Dates. And I was watching this episode. It was like a rerun from like last year or something.
Right.
I was watching this episode of First Dates with my missus, and Charlene was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a vocalist," and I was just, "Oh yeah, I've definitely heard her on a few tracks." And I think she tours with Basement Jacks, right, and does some of the stuff on their tunes. And then the next day, I think it was like literally the very next day, Marvel posted, just purely by chance, Marvel posted on his Instagram, here's our new track with Sharlene Hector. What do you think? And I was just like, what are the chances of that, man? What are the chances? Yeah, and I've been on his case ever since. Just like, send me that tune, man. Send me that tune. Can't wait for that to come out. So I think that's just dropped on Bandcamp over the past week or two. I don't know if it's widely available yet. I don't think it's available via... correct me if I'm wrong, Marvel. I hope I'm not doing you an injustice here. I don't think it's widely available just yet. I've got a feeling it's due out any day now, or maybe it came out. What's the date today? Sunday. Maybe it came out. Maybe it came out Friday. I probably should have checked that.
We are recording on the 25th of July. That doesn't mean it's going to drop on the same day.
I'll double check that. If it's not out already, it's definitely out imminently. But you can get it off the Marvelous Bandcamp at the minute. So,
mate, always a good way. Directly supporting the label more
Absolutely.
closely. Get that money straight into their coffers and not into anyone else.
They don't have to lose 75-80% of the revenue to whatever platform is hosting it, or more than that if you're talking about streaming services.
Completely. Right, so we'll move on to mine. It's my obvious pick. Revisiting my go-to American label for new artists at the moment. And we're back down in Bristol with Oppidan on this one. She released the Morning Miggy EP. This is the other side to that I really liked. This is a tune entitled Colgate. If we can get past the spinning beach balls on my Mac. Oppidan, Colgate. So hype. Absolutely love it. Go on.
I was going to say, it's a pleasure to hear somebody kind of solidly delivering a kind of bass heavy two-step vibe, because there's not a whole lot of people that kind of can pull off what she's done there as well as that. Do you know what I mean? Like, at the moment there's a lot of kind of bass heavy 4/4 around. There's a kind of, I don't know, in my perception, there's a lack of kind of real strong kind of bass-led two-step like that kind of skips in that way that does.
Modern dubby two-step. It's there. There's only a few people that are doing it exceptionally well that are not emulating something from yesteryear. There's a lot of LB rip-offs, real bad LB rip-offs going around. Not to shit too much on Shall Not Fade / The Time Is Now label that make lots of money out of vinyl based on nostalgic standing two-step. Some of that stuff can be a bit diluting the waters with stuff that just sounds samey to me and not exciting. I do play a lot of it, but some of it is just a bit like, okay, thanks. Like, could you pay royalties to LB on this? But I mean, back to the actual subject of this tune here, Colgate. I love I think it's done for the Spotify generation with the intro kind of the way it just drops straight in with nothing other than the kind of the pads and the build up, and then the arpeggiator thing or whatever you'd call it in the background going up and down. Love that shit. and then the way the bass is kind of on the offbeat when it comes in, hype, and I love it. I love the way it's all put together. The levels of it, the mix down, the sounds used, all of it is just phenomenal work, Oppidan. And it just shows like she's renowned for doing real good 4/4, and then she just pisses out amazing two-step as well. So she's waking up and pissing excellence.
It's a strong track. I mean, I said to you before we started rolling with the show that my choice from the EP would have been Morning Miggy itself. That was my preference, but certainly nothing wrong with that track either. All in all, it's a strong release. She's very, her work rate, she's very efficient, and she's consistent, man. Like everything she puts out is on point. I've got a lot of time for Oppidan. I think she does some really interesting stuff, and I like her approach as well. And that track's a good example of it, as is Morning Miggy. It kind of, there's elements of it that kind of hark back to that kind of future garage era in terms of the sound design and some of the recordings and little sound effects that she has in the tracks that not a lot of people can kind of pull off. Particularly, it doesn't sound shoehorned in there. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't sound like some people, like, I don't want to sound negative or criticise anyone, but sometimes like I hear tracks that sound like a little bit futuristic and kind of out there, and it's almost like someone's heard a bit of Burial and then just gone, I want to try and do a two-step track with like a little bit of a Burial influence. But I feel like Oppidan kind of treads a real fine line nicely between doing this stuff that's kind of a bit soundscapey, but also quite club ready, and I think that comes across quite well in her sets as well in terms of her selections. She's a solid DJ and all round impressive sort of up and coming artist, so props to her.
I mean, I think almost Burial almost killed the future garage genre, as it were, I would say. I think when that was sort of coming in to be a big thing, I don't want to divert too much from the subject of this new tune, but it's like, future garage was basically wonky music that didn't sound like quite, like a lot of it was musically incorrect, you could almost say. It was weird sounds, but then there was like the weird part, and then there was that kind of soundscapey atmospheric bit. And the soundscapey atmospheric stuff was more going down where Burial would eventually end up. And then I think when Burial like hit and everyone just like, just collectively jizzed their pants over him, and he was so successful, I think everyone then decided that anything that sat in that space was a bad attempt at being Burial. And now any song, I remember famously, who was the guy that made Backs? Was it Moscow? I think it was DJ Moscow. He famously wrote off Future Garage as being a bunch of shit Burial ripoffs. I think he said something along those lines. And by come kind of the middle of the 10s, that was true. Like everyone was just, you can tell it was just boring. They'll find an atmospheric sound, play that for a long bit, and then have a slow two-step beat with a bass line. It stopped exciting me, and it was a shame.
I can understand that. I think I was probably the only person on the planet that wasn't kind of on that Burial hype in a massive way like everyone else was. And I don't think that was specifically because of anything that he did or didn't do. I think it was because it kind of reminded me of my days at uni. And I mean, you know me, I studied music at uni. I studied music tech and then I did composition. But where I went to uni, there was quite an emphasis on soundscapes. And I ended up being kind of forced to make a lot of that kind of stuff back, in the kind of early noughties, and it never really did anything for me. So when everyone else was kind of spunking over Burial, I was there kind of going, it sounds like all that shit I was being made to do back in 2002. All due props to Burial because he did very well from it, so fair play, mate. But I get where you're coming from.
I've never really been on the Burial train. I don't want to suddenly just drop some sort of bomb, but I've never really... Yeah, in fact, I don't know whether I can honestly say I've ever listened to one of his tunes all the way through.
Do you know what is interesting? There is some of his. I've noticed somewhat recently. I don't know if you've spotted this as well, or if I'm talking out my arse. Please correct me if you would disagree. I've noticed there's quite a strong insurgence of Scottish producers and Scottish artists who I can only assume are quite heavily influenced by Burial, but are making some really cool shit. Some kind of soundscapey, future garagey two-step, which is well worth a listen. People like Poolside Convo, Jack Josh? Hang on, let me double check that because I don't want to give out duff information if my computer just wake up. I think it's Jack Josh.
Mate, you've just told me about a whole new
Jack Josh. There you go.
Whole new subgenre of Scottish future garage.
It's like a little whether it's specifically Scottish. What I've noticed, because obviously, like I know you're not really on the Spotify thing. My Spotify release radar and Discover Weekly regularly seems to kick up this real kind of ambient, sonically quite interesting, high-paced two-step. And I've noticed that a number of the artists that are on there are Scottish artists. So I don't know if that is specifically a thing that's kind of coming out of Glasgow or something. I don't know what the basis for that is, but keep it coming, lads, because I'm enjoying it each week.
Step. Watch this
Scotch
space.
Step. I like that.
My favourite Scottish artist we'll throw out there is a guy called Hostage. He made some amazing garage probably about 5, 6, 7 years ago now, and he went into kind of tech house, but check him out if you haven't. He's got some banging EPs. Should we move on to your next one?
Yeah, we've digressed massively there, haven't we?
Next one. What it's all about. We're going on a journey, right? It's a garage journey.
I'm mindful you're always conscious of us overrunning into like 3-hour podcast territory there, aren't you? My next one's from a guy that I've been rating massively, and I don't feel like he's getting the credit he deserves, so I'm more than happy to give him a little shout out on the podcast and hopefully point a few people in his direction, because Baker needs some love, trust me. This track is out now on his label Big Boy Beats, and it's called Never Coming Back.
So where's the vocal from?
Good question. You'd have to ask Baker that. I don't know if it's. I don't know if he's got a vocalist in, or if they're cuts from sample kits or what. But it's strong, isn't it? It's one of those tracks, man. I've got my hairs are standing on end. You know what it is about Baker that I really like. What he does really well, and I feel like it's like I always feel like if you refer to someone as talented, it almost undermines the hard work they put in to get to where they're at, right? So I don't mean it as a negative, I mean it as a positive. There are some people who are just really good at making music that gives you the feels. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like Baker's tracks, without fail, always kind of they make me feel emotional. They're just like really strong feeling tracks, and this is a great example. He did it brilliantly a few months back with a track called I think it was Someone to Hold. If you haven't checked that out, I strongly recommend going and giving that a listen. He's releasing, I mean, I spoke to him somewhat recently, and he was just like, I'm not as he made a comment to the effect of he's not as consistent as he would like to be. He's not consistently putting music out, but he's definitely putting out a track every month or something, which and they're all strong like this. So I said to him, give yourself more credit, man. You know, like life gets in the way, and I'd sooner hear quality over quantity. But yeah, it's self-released via Big Boy Beats, and if you go through on Beatport, do you know whatever your favourite platform is, listen back to the tracks he's been putting out, they're strong, man. They need more eyes on them. They deserve more eyes on them, or ears, as the case may be. And this is a good example of why.
Top tune. I said to you at the start before we were recording, I kicked off. I think it was it was 2 shows back. This was my first opener song. It's a great song. It's really, like you said, you've said a lot about it. I can't really put any different take on it. It's a lovely tune. Great pick. We'll wind it down. I don't want to just overdo the, oh, he's so amazing, let's gosh. We get it, he's good. Great work, Baker. Thank you for continuing to put out amazing music.
Please keep them coming, mate.
To support what you're doing. Right, this one is I'm gonna ask a real granddad question on this one, because I don't know where the vocal's from. So this must have got like reposted on SoundCloud, this tune I want to talk about. And I'd never heard it before, and I got it from Bandcamp. That's somewhere else. And so it's an artist called Magic Flowers, and this tune is called Shameless. If you know where the vocal's from, please holler at me, because I haven't got a clue. Anyway, let's get it playing.
Say it louder. Who's gonna love you like me? Like me. Say it louder, say it louder. Who's gonna touch you like me? Like me. Ooh, said you wanna be good, but you couldn't keep your composure. Ooh, said you wanna be good, but you're begging me to come over. Ooh, come over. Ooh, saying who's gonna fuck you like me? Yeah. I don't wanna hurt you, but you fall the pet. I'm not trying to stay short, it's what you became. You want me to fix you, never did that. So you always focus, scared to be loved. I always be there for you. I always be there for you. I always be there for you, girl. I have no shame. I always be there for you. I always be there for you. I always be there for you, girl. I have no shame. I always be there for you. I always be there for you.
I mean, it's really unfortunate that you're getting the watered down Skype version of that tune. But yeah, I found it, and this is like a hidden gem for me. It's absolutely banging. Is it a pop vocal that I don't know about because I'm a granddad? Is my first question.
I'm not 100% up to date with pop. I've not been finding a lot of time to listen to the radio recently, but I would strongly suspect that is a Weekend vocal.
I was going to say Weekend.
Sounds heavily like the Weekend to me. I would almost bet money on it. It's really nicely done though. Whatever vocal it is, wherever that vocal's from, it's a real nice use of it, and the arrangement of that track is really cool. I don't know if on the original vocal he's got that that pitch down bit that was just playing a minute ago. I don't know if that's on the original vocal or if that's something that the producer has added in there. It made me think back to last month, or it might have been the month before actually, when we were talking about people repitching vocals and stuff and how people do it and it sounds shit. But that is a good example of one that doesn't sound bad. It's creatively done quite well. It adds something to proceedings.
Little 4/4 switch as well happening right now.
4/4 switch. We love a 4/4 switch.
We love a 4/4 switch. Yeah, it is a Weekend vocal. That's just. I'm sorry, I'm a granddad and I don't listen to pop music. It was called Shameless, released in 2015. But yeah, it's really well done. Like, even when you hear the way they've processed the vocals, like the way it kind of bounces on the beat, it's so nice. And the sounds they've used. Again, it's just a modern take on the genre, and I don't know who Magic Flowers is, but well done. Taken from their Trip Flips EP. Grab that on a Bandcamp somewhere. Thank you, Magic Flowers.
Is that whole EP free then, just out of interest? Or?
No, I think that's to pay for it. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, it's a paid one, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
I chucked in some money.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to throw the artists a bone every now and again, you guys.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Might throw you £1 if you're lucky. Cool. That was our modern music. We've got our usual roundup that we do, right? So for those that may be new listeners or listened before, Rob is very kindly maintaining a beautiful Spotify playlist of in the UK Garage recommends. And because of this, every show we round up our top 3s with an additional 7 to make it a top 10. So we're just going to run through the other tunes we had for this month's episode to go onto that playlist. Last show we went 1 for 1 with a 1-sentence explanation of what the tune is. Are you good to do that again, Rob?
I think so. I'm just looking through my list now thinking I can't remember how that one goes, but I might just ad-lib something and we'll see what comes out my mouth.
Yeah. Remember, we've got the backup. I invented Scar UKG, right? You can just say it's Scar KG and no one will know. No one will know. All right, do you want to go first?
I'll start with a very obvious selection for me, which is Sugar by Matt Jam, Lamont and Echelon, featuring Siren Rivers. It's available now via Underground Freaks, and it's just a lovely, soulful two-stepper. Enough said. If you haven't heard it, go check it out.
My first pick is by The Goose. The Goose is Loose. Infamous Goose, releasing on New Volve Records, called Closer. I've been supporting The Goose for a few years now, and it's great to see him out on New Volve with an amazing piece of two-step.
Do you know what? You stitched me right up there because that was also on my list, but I'm now going to have to refer to my backup list to replace that. Props to Infamous Goose because that track is banging. Second one I've got is by Lausin and Situal. I hope I'm saying that right. I think I am. It's called Feel, and it's available now via Keychain Records. We showcased one of the Keychain releases on the last podcast, and I feel this track is a good extension of what the label's sound appears to be developing into, which is a real kind of soulful, eclectic sort of mixed bag of vibes. It's really high level production, highly recommended.
My next choice is off of the Club Ready compilation from Garage Shed by Howden, and it's called Carbon. It's a 4/4 stomper there for when the clubs reopen. Check out Club Ready. Lots of bangers on there.
Good choice on that one, man. I've also got next up the Higo. It wouldn't be the In the Garage podcast if we didn't have a Higo track somewhere in here, would it? I've got the Higo remix of Closer by Jaden Thompson. Lovely, catchy, soulful two-stepper. I think just about every track I've got on my list this week is two-step. I normally try and mix it up and go for like a little bit of 4/4, a little bit of bass-heavy stuff. There's just a lot of nice soulful vibes around at the minute. This is a great example of that.
There was a Higo track. There's been a couple Higos. No, okay, let's not digress. My next one is a guy that is, he's pretty big and he's made a name for himself already, but he's been putting tunes out regularly recently. Royalty, and he put out a 4/4 clubby tune called Echo Park. Echo Park, I've been told, is a place in LA, and that's why it's got kind of that Dr. Dre-esque LA vibes in there with a whistly sound that he's done. So little Easter egg there. Check that one out, banger.
Thank you for clearing that up for me, because I was listening to that track in the car with my daughter the other day and she went, "Why is it called Echo Park?" And I didn't have an answer, but I did point out that it had a West Coast kind of vibe to it, so that completely fits. Anyway, I'm waffling. Next one on my list is my second Marvel and Eli track this week. It's the Tough Culture dub of Gin and Tonic, which feels like it's been around for absolutely forever, but got a sort of release relatively recently, and it's a banging bass-heavy 4/4 track that needs some love.
Blinding. The next one, I've only got half of the artist. I think I know who it is. Do I? I'm going to go with a different one. So the next one is Badger, and this is a track entitled Canopy. It's off the Averex Airwaves 3 compilation, third set of the Averex Airwaves compilations, which have all been banging. This is a top tune from Badger off of there. Two-step vibes. Make sure you check it out.
Really threw me when I heard that, because it wasn't what I was expecting at all. It just goes to show how diverse Badger's sort of palette is. Next one on my list, so I keep commenting on your ones. I'm supposed to be concentrating on doing the sentence, and I'm getting sidetracked. Next one, very very obvious one. We couldn't not mention DJ Q and Hans Glader featuring Shola Amma. I Can't Stay, which is available now via Local Action Records. I just feel it's everything that UKG needs right now. It's two of my favourite producers with a sort of classic old school vocalist, and the results are exactly as you would expect them to be.
Hans Glader. It's going to be tight between him and Higo for Artist of the Year. Right, this is what I was trying to get at. So we've got Danny Blaze and Ruby Creed. They done a tune called Smile. Laura Alice did an extended mix, remix on it. 4/4 bumpiness, and it's great to see Laura Alice putting more stuff out there. You first showcased her, I think, to me, way back.
Indeed, yeah. We're ahead of the grain on In the Garage, aren't we? That was a few months back now. Who have I got next? Next on my list, I've got this little known fellow who deserves more credit, called Phonetix, with a track called Other Plans, which is available now on Strictly Flavour. Obviously, I'm slightly biased, and this is completely not me saying it about my own track. I'm just going to avoid sounding like a complete prick, I'm going to say what other people have said to me. A few people have said to me it's the sound of the summer. So if you want some light, airy fairy, soulful two-step, go check it out.
Awesome. It's a banging track. I really want to take the piss out of you for picking it. But
You go ahead, take the piss.
I can't do it, man. It's not fair. It's it's just you top caliber shit. Well done.
Thanks, mate.
More night bass, obvious pick, but it's got to be done. MPH, Spend the Night. He's just consistent. Consistency. I don't know nothing more.
The work rate of MPH is just second to none. It's phenomenal. I swear the geezer's got like an EP coming out every week. It's insane. I'm just going to bear with me a second. I'm going to have to refer to my backup list because my next choice was Closer by Infamous Goose, but some fool has stitched me up and stolen it. How about you go? You go with your next choice, and I'll find one from my backup list.
Right. So my last one that I've got on my list is an Austrian guy called Volume, and it's VOLJUM, and the track is called Half Overcast. How do I sum this up in a sentence? It is sound design that will screw with your brain like DMT. It's a journey. You need an open mind to listen to it, but please check it out. I played it on my show, and it's just wonky goodness. That's it.
I'm having a crisis here because I'm in two minds. I've got two tracks here that I'd love to talk about. I'm going to go with DJ Crisps because I'm a big fan of Crisps. I like he's kind of got his own take on the genre. He does some really interesting stuff. He's churned out a few tunes recently that I've really liked. Most recently he released No Dirty Money on Time Is Now Records, and I just love the bass line on it. The bass patch is just, it's got this kind of one of those detuned basses that just kind of makes your head go a little bit, and I want to hear it in a club, and I'm looking forward to hearing it in a club.
I've had a lot of good feedback on that one. It's a popular choice. Great work, and again I shat on them earlier. This Shall Not Fade, Time Is Now it'll come out on one of them. It's big up Crisps. I think he's Dutch, right? Yeah,
he's Dutch. Yeah.
Blinding. So that's it. Subscribe to the In the Garage Recommends Spotify playlist, and that is you can easily get there as intheukgarage.com/recommends.
Nice.
Let's do it. Let's do our usual way back when stuff and start talking about our favourite period of garage.
Heading back to the forgotten years, eh?
Yes.
We discussed last month. I can't remember what we discussed, but we went off. We were talking. We showcased some Scandalous, didn't we? And then we ended up kind of going down the route of discussing a few different artists. And I think we specifically said back then, right, next month we're going to have one overdue selection of a Duncan Powell track and a selection of one of the Midnight Circus tracks. So I've drawn Duncan Powell, and I've gone with a not so obvious one because I didn't want to be too predictable. I feel like a lot of people would probably expect you to pick Duncan's mix of There's Nothing Like This, because that was kind of a seminal Duncan release that kind of turned heads when it turned a lot of heads. Liked that one. Liked a lot of what Duncan did, but me being me, I kind of always tend to go for two-step if given the choice, and he did a track on True Tiger, which I think featured on one of their mixtapes with Dry Box and Doctor, called Girl I'm Feeling You, and it's just an absolutely beautiful summer track, which is playing now.
So baby, how about pleasing me? Give me your name and number.
trying to see whether it was actually released on any vinyl. I couldn't find one.
I don't believe it was. I think the only way you could get it was on one of the mix. I say mixtapes. I think they were CDs, but they were referred to as mixtapes. I think, and Duncan, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was on volume 2. But what a vibe, man! It's like one of those productions as well. When you kind of break it down and start putting it onto the scope, it's really simple, but like it's simple but effective. What he's done is just such a nice vibe, and the vocals just lovely. Gets right in your head as well.
Yeah, I mean, Duncan was a staple of that period of time, and I think that resurgence of the wonky 4/4 sound was driven definitely by him as well as other people.
Yeah.
We were saying if we at the start of the show we was discussing what we pick for a tune. If I had to pick a 4/4 tune, I wouldn't have picked Omar. Omar was the kind of one that everyone wanted, and I think it was more because it was exclusive rather than like his better kind of production. I would have picked Something Wrong when he chopped up that really kind of old song into that 4/4 tune, and that was kind of on stereo hype, and that's probably my second Duncan vinyl I ever bought, and it was the first time when I kind of listened to a new school 4/4 tune. It just had a different gimmick of the way that he kind of slowed it down into this old school tune and then brought it into 4/4 choppiness. I loved the way that he did it. Like I preferred that so much more to the kind of Omar filtering in and out stuff. Like Something Wrong was so much better. And my two-step pick would have been on True Tiger Volume 5, I think it was, which was Looking Hard, which is obviously just a genuine track, chopped up and two-stepped, as someone close to me once said. But that tune, that was a two-step tune that I was thirsty for. I was anticipating that for a long time and was very happy to see it. There was a lot of hype. Around that one.
There was a lot of hype around that one, for sure. The drums on that one as well, like you said, it's really simple, but the drums on that one hit so hard when you hear them on a club system, particularly that snare. Like I feel like only Duncan would have thought to use that snare in the way he did, but it works so well. I mean, I must admit, like I had a bit of a job deciding which Duncan tune to pick to showcase, because in terms of, he was kind of the MPH of back then, wasn't he? In terms of work rate, there was just seemed to be a million Duncan tunes around all at once, and the quality level was consistent. So nothing but undying respect for the man Duncan. I feel probably deserves more love in the modern era than he gets, just for what he kind of contributed to the scene in that kind of lost era. And as I say, I could have picked any one of a number of tracks. This is just the icing. It's just a small piece of the puzzle. Do you know what I mean? You could go through and pick any number. I think weirdly, a lot of people, I think I said to you before the show, a lot of people, if you sat them down and went, what's your favourite Duncan Powell tune, they would pick a 4/4 track. But actually, I myself, I prefer, and it might just be because subjectively I tend to go for two-step over 4/4. I think possibly it's just because I found his non-4 projects were sort of slightly more creative. I don't know whether that was intentional or conscious on his part. They were just a bit more kind of out there. Like he did a load of stuff that was just different. It was, you could always pinpoint it as Duncan. He definitely had his sound, kind of like Tough Culture. Do you know what I mean? He kind of dotted around and did different bits, but you could still identify it as Duncan. But I definitely preferred like tracks like this. I'm trying to think what the track that went out on one of the Riddler Dubs EPs was, because I love that. I'll Let You Know. It kind of started, it had this kind of skippy kind of almost half step intro, and then kind of went into a kind of 4/4 roller. That was cool. And then obviously he did a lot of bootleg stuff as well, and the quality level always remained high with the bootlegs, because a lot of people like it, and particularly in that era, you listen to their tunes and their original tracks had a lot of love in them, and then you could hear from a mile off that the bootlegs were just to make a few quid, and there was no love in them. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to sound negative, but you could tell the artists that were just going, fuck it, I'll do a remix because I can put it out there and sell a few hundred vinyl and make a few quid off it. But I never got that impression from Duncan's bootlegs. I felt like he always approached every track he did, irrespective of what it was, whether it was a remix, original, or a bootleg, he always approached it from the perspective, I want to get this just right. And I think that's probably part of why he had such a big and loyal fan base around that time, because there was the respect for that kind of quality control.
I mean, I think I remember him telling me a story about one of his bootlegs got bootlegged off him,
Yeah, it did. I know exactly the track you mean. I know exactly who it was.
And they pressed the 128 MP3 apparently.
Yeah.
I suppose we better not mention names.
There was a bit of that around back then. I mean, it's a staple of the dance music scene, isn't it? Really, unfortunately.
It's a shame though, because that particular remix that we obviously can't mention, that was probably a bit of a diversion from his usual flavour. If you think about it, it was a bit more breaky, really, if anything. And I really like that one. But yeah, as soon as he's like, oh yeah, that was from a 128 MP3, and they pressed it without my permission, and then you listen back to it, and it's like, oh yeah, that is muddy. That's why I never really got on with it. But yeah, it's about Duncan as well. I mean, we met up through the Forgotten Years and wanted to talk. Me, you, and Duncan talked and wanted to reinvigorate the scene. And Duncan had these visions of doing kind of new takes on things, and he started that whole series of his more modern new twisted sound that he created, which was just using different samples. That weren't what part of his old repertoire, and it was kind of future garage, but it was more his own kind of take on it, and that was definitely a different direction that he went, and I don't think that ever got the traction that it deserved.
No, I agree.
But he had a lot of passion though.
Was that called was that the push EP? I think.
Yeah, the push EP was the start. The push EP project was what kind of how it started, right? But he just kind of started smashing tunes out one after the other that were all like his new take on things. And again, just you got to admire dedication and the love for it, and just the talent again to not be patronising. And yeah, it's a shame that he doesn't make music anymore, for sure.
It is. It was a big loss to the scene. I think the day where Duncan decided to focus on driving cars at the weekend instead of making tunes. But got to respect it. He did his legwork over the years. He put a lot of time and graft into the scene, and he, I think he achieved a lot. Perhaps more than he realised. I think if you look at his following is still there now. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, it's difficult to. I think in the modern day to kind of grow your fan base when you're not releasing music, but there's still a large core of people there that do know about Duncan. Maybe some of the newer cats that arrived a bit later on don't, but he's left a legacy. I think Para once famously said to me something to the effect of that guy deserves a fucking lifetime achievement award for his contributions to garage, or something to that effect. And coming from someone with the skills that Para has, I think that speaks volumes. So
completely.
Big up, big man, big up Duncan.
It made me think in doing these kind of sections, and how when we were starting them, and it's like, well, we've got to pick a tune to talk about. It made me feel like we're showcasing tunes, but we should be showcasing artists, and we should be looking at a repertoire rather than just here's one tune that we've picked. That's kind of what it's turned into anyway, right? I know there are certain tunes that are kind of seminal, or just bangers that were of the age, but in talking about Duncan and the next act, it's like there's a whole kind of set of stuff that you'd love to talk about, really.
Yeah, for sure. It's such a shame that these tunes, and we've said it before, and I would harp on about it all day given half the chance, but it's just such a shame that these tunes are effectively lost in time, aren't they? There's part of me, I mean, I've lost touch with Stanza over the years, but there's part of me, I'd love to reach out to him and go, look, mate, just get all of that True Tiger stuff and stick it out there, put it on Spotify and all the streaming services, and just so it's available and there, because really, like, at this point there's no reason not to. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean that with any disrespect to Stanza. He's off probably doing other things, and he's busy doing those, but it seems such a shame to me, Duncan, the next act that we're going to discuss, Midnight Circus, but also the people that we've talked about on previous episodes as well, that there's a raft of amazing music there, which you know about, if if you were there, or if we flag it for you. But if you were not one of the kind of relatively small fan base that garage had in those years, you'd need somebody to kind of point it out, otherwise you're never going to come across it. And it's, I don't know, it just makes my heart sad. Is what it is.
One day, hopefully he'll listen to this and be like, quick, get it up. And then he'll put it on Spotify. Right, okay, next group. So this tune that we picked out here, so this is the first release from a group called the Midnight Circus. I remember hearing this tune online somewhere. It was probably on the Uptown Forum, if I had to guess, or somewhere around there. I don't know whether I was running the Slick and Fresh blog by that point or not. But
I think it was
basically
before Slick and Fresh.
I don't know because I don't know.
I've
Maybe it was.
got 2007 in my head, if I'm not mistaken.
That was the year
was
I
it
launched
earlier
it.
than
That was the year I launched it. The first birthday bash was in the 2008. So, all right. Anyway, I remember messaging directly the group and saying, "I love this tune. Can I get a copy?" And they posted me a promo CD of this tune, which was rare for me because I was just on some not so well-known internet radio station before the one I'm on now. And it was just great to have this kind of official from Damaged Goods Recordings clip of this tune. This was before MP3s were doing the rounds massively, to be honest. So yeah, we'll just play it now. This is the Midnight Circus, and their opening tune with Aaron Soul on the vocals, and this track called So Divine. Let's wait for the beach balls, and we'll get it in. Mate,
wow,
proper,
yeah, just wow. It's just,
I mean, I could probably talk about the Midnight Circus for hours. I'm obviously conscious of time of how long the podcast has been running for. I think we're already nearly up to the 1.5 hour mark, believe it or not. But yeah, it's like this was their opening kind of gambit, and it was so strong. It's super cheesy when you think about it. It's a super duper happy song, and I don't care. I love it. I'm a melt and I love it. And it was just, it was a great explosion onto the scene at the time. And I wasn't even clear as who was part of this group before when this tune drops. I didn't know it was involved in it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Like if I had to pick a word, like if this tune had been released 4 or 5 years earlier, you're talking about an absolute definite top 10 hit right there. And I think you could say that for almost the whole Midnight Circus discography. Like every track was strong like this. I mean, we talked before, obviously we started the episode about what tune we were going to play, and you decided on So Divine because it was like the first release, which I got. If I had to pick one as a personal favourite, it would probably be Complicated, with Liz, I can't think what her name is.
Lizzie Williams.
Lizzie Williams on the vocal, and that was another strong vocal. They just, everything about their discography, their tracks was just strong. Like they used strong vocalists. The engineering was second to none. They were well written songs, and like you said, they did things properly in the sense of all the marketing and the branding and sending out CDs at a time when everybody else was just kind of knocking up bootlegs and sending out MP3s. They had a, do you know what I mean? They had a real kind of vision for where they wanted the project to go, and just such a shame that the timing wasn't quite right, because I feel like they deserved so much more for the legwork that they put in. Interesting that you mentioned that was Aaron Soul on the vocal for that one, because until this moment in time I had no idea that was Aaron Soul. I'd never made the link.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. Yeah, it's
did not know that.
I mean, when you say it, you can hear it's him straight away, though, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
but yeah, I remember. I spent time with them because one half of Midnight Circus was Pete Devereaux from Artful Dodger. If you didn't know that, the production kind of engineering part of it was a guy called Ollie, Great talented guy. And Alex, who was the MC on that track, he wrote most of the lyrics to the songs. Not only his MC parts, but he was writing the lyrics to all of the tunes pretty much. Their original plan was for Lizzie Williams to pretty much be kind of the face of it. And the things that were kind of blowing up weren't really the things that Lizzie wasn't the front of the bits that were kind of getting traction, which was a real shame. And I think what you said, it's like the timing wasn't quite right. I don't think the scene, we called it the Forgotten Years because it was such a tiny scene that has been forgotten. And I think, rightly, like you said, this would have blown up if it had happened, I don't know, either side of that era of music. So much quality music came out of that group. And I was very kind of proud to be involved in they did a remix competition for, it was a song they did called Move, and they never actually released the original of this tune, but we got 2 strong mixes out of it that came first and second in the end. The winner was a guy called Jelly Beats, who, what a talented musician. He played live for me when I did my birthday bash for Slick and Fresh, and he was playing like the keys in the club. Like, it's the sort of thing that would completely go underappreciated to a bunch of pissheads that were in Herbal down in Shoreditch. But it's just an amazing talent. His vocalist was called Dee, and she was singing along with him, and it was just fucking phenomenal. But his mix of Move was like a Grant Nelson-esque 4/4 smash. Like the quality was off the charts, and he so rightly won. And he was supposed to appear on the album that they had, and the album never happened. Second place was a guy called Legacy, top bloke. And he got to come down to the studio to do the mix down of that tune with Pete and Ollie, and I don't think Alex was there that day. And yeah, his one ended up on the EP in the end, and then the EP that came out is the one that had the Move remix. MILF was on there. What was there was the one that I'm stopping to talk about is Love Suicide, because that's the one I've said before is the new Amen break, is the Love Suicide break. And there's one more tune on that EP that escapes me, but they had, say, their tunes were just such high caliber. And there was one tune that they never brought out that the only guy that I think had a copy of it was Charmer, and Sunship even did a remix of it, and it was something about, it was called Holiday Noise, it was called.
It rings a bell. I can't place it. It rings a bell.
It was like holiday. It was like holiday girls, holiday boys. Honestly, I remember hearing it in the studio and just getting just like shivers down my spine of just how good it was. And I don't want to start blowing up things that Pete was saying, but like I think the general view was that it could have been a massive success when it's pushed. And it never got pushed. And I don't know whether that was because the relationship collapsed with all of the artists or whatever, but it's a real shame what happened to that project, because there was so much talent there. There's so much great music came out of it. And Pete's gone on to do many different things after that. Devolution was one of the last things that I was kind of close to that he was doing. But on to now, I'm not sure what he's up to right now. I think he's got another musical act he's doing, but I don't know what genre it's in.
I'm not sure what Oddie's up to either, but he was Stockholm Syndrome, wasn't he, as well at one point. Obviously, both talented fellas in their own right. I was always gutted the project kind of fell off for personal reasons, because they did that remix competition. Useless tidbit for you, actually. Jelly Beats and I studied together at uni, so I actually knew Jelly Beats.
Oh, really?
The same uni. Yeah, he was in the year below me. But I actually, they did a second competition. So they did the remix competition. Just before they did the remix competition, they did one, and it was just hosted via their MySpace page, if I remember rightly, back in the MySpace days. And it was like, it basically was like, we're looking for the next big songwriter. We want to get some singer-songwriters in the studio to work with us, and they basically uploaded the instrumental for Life. Then, if you remember Life, they stripped it down, took the MC parts of it, and uploaded just like a 30-second clip and said, record something and send it to us. So obviously I did a lot of work with Harsh, still do. Me and Harsh are quite tight, right? So me and Harsh actually did an entry for that competition, which we wrote and recorded in the space of about an hour on a sunny afternoon, sent it off to them. And I got a nice email back from Pete. Pete was always he was always really supportive of my music. He's always, you know, I've got a lot of time for Pete. He was always a top fella. He basically emailed me back, and it was probably ties in with what you're saying. It was about the same time. He basically emailed back saying, "Mate, this is fucking brilliant. We'd love to get you guys in the studio to do some more stuff, but essentially we're canning the project because it's not working out." So I was always gutted on a personal level that they obviously kind of never kind of pursued it further, because I would have loved to have got in the studio with those guys, and I know Harsh would have too. But actually the track the vocal that we recorded over Life, we later, obviously because we couldn't do anything with it over the Life backing, I composed a new backing for it, which Tony Floyd and Luke Holden remixed for us as Dubwise, which ended up getting signed to Garage Jams and went out on Ministry of Sound's Garage Classics compilation. So there's a useless bit of trivia, garage trivia history for you that nobody cares about, but which was meaningful to myself and Harsh. That track, Take It Slow, which we released as Sold It Out, actually was written to the Life instrumental for Midnight Circus.
Oh, you sent me that, and I didn't realise that was the history of it. You said I've got this bootleg of this tune, and I didn't realise that was the origins. That
was the origins of it, and then from there, obviously, it was by the time we kind of started to make moves with it as a sort of finished track, the bass line movement was kind of fully in motion, and Dubwise, Tony Floyd and Luke Holden were doing big things, so they kind of came along and was just like, oh yeah, you got any vocals that we can rework, and we kind of paired up with them, did that, and it ended up making us a tidy amount of money, actually, which is happy days. I don't find myself saying often in garage.
Tidy amount of money, £3.68. Super tidy. Nice one. Rip Midnight Circus, and big up to all of you guys. Thank you for the beautiful music over the period of the lost years. Let's gas. Let's get gas in. I want to hear all about Jaguar's UKG special, because I didn't hear it, and I want you to tell me about what it was.
It was nice, man. It was nice. I saw a tweet about it. I just kind of caught it on the off chance, because I must admit I don't make a sort of I don't routinely listen into BBC introducing probably as much as I should, because you do hear some good stuff on there. But Jaguar, obviously, with their ear to the ground, has picked up on the fact that there's a lot of good UKG bubbling and coming out at the moment, and wanted to showcase some up and coming artists. So used her platform on Radio 1, I think we're going back a week or two now, to do a garage special. So that's the what do they call it? BBC Radio 1 Introducing Dance show, I think they call it. And she had she had some solid selections on there from the likes of Bailey Gibbs and Cortez, who I'm a massive fan of, Laura Alice again, who we were talking about earlier, Emma, I want to say Emma Champion? Emma Cannon, beg your pardon, because there's two different... Emma Cannon, yeah. I'm trying to think who else she had on there. Oh, so Renoir was on there, and Soul Lecter. Yeah, there was some nice choices. So she are you sitting there with the track list in now?
Yeah, of course.
You haven't committed it all to memory or something, right? Okay. I felt like I was letting the side down there. But it was a nice list, and it was just nice to hear those guys who were deserving of the exposure get some Radio 1 play, man. It was nice.
Yeah, I see Soul Lecter's We Speak No London. So, I mean, that was a good, because that's not like banging super duper new, but it's a good choice to represent kind of new clubby 4/4. There's a few of the kind of time is now shall not fade artists on here. Bailey Gibbs has been kind of up and coming for the last few years, and he's really starting. He's diverged from what he was originally doing into the more breaky kind of stuff, but it's real high fucking caliber. I've got a lot of time for Bailey Gibbs, and it's great to see he's kind of out there. Laura Alice, I'm so happy. Like I'm hoping she's not a victim of that kind of female fast tracking because of a male saturated market, but she's doing some high quality stuff, and it's great to see her on here. I really don't want that to be the case, because I think there's certain instances where that's happening and it's not just, whereas here it is just. She's really talented. And same with Oppidan. She's the talent there is warranted. Emma Cannon I'm not familiar with though.
You would know the tune if you heard it. It's one of those tunes like that I've heard around a lot, and I must admit, because it was one of the ones that I did have on my radar to discuss on the show in previous months gone by, because I think it was out about 3 months ago, something like that. It's been around a while, that tune, but there was something about it that kind of jarred me at first listen, and I wasn't sure about it, but the more I've listened to it, the more it's grown on me, and I can now kind of appreciate it for, it's a real... That they actually spotlighted that track in particular. Jaguar kind of stopped and said, "We want to spotlight this one. You need to go and check this track out," kind of thing. I can't say I've had a chance actually to get onto Emma Cannon's page and listen to more of what she's done. But like, if that track's anything to go by, it's definitely worth going and having a little listen, because it's just a good example of a catchy, well-written two-step track. And I think Jaguar made the comparison between her and Baby Katie. Or Katie B, whatever she ended up being called. She was Baby Katie back in the kind of early funky days, wasn't she? I think she did some stuff on Danny C's AIM label
please
originally.
Please don't tell me all this time Baby Katie is Katie B of Katie on a Mission. Yep. Oh my fucking God.
Did you not know that?
Obviously not, because I feel like a massive fucking prick. I can't believe I never knew that.
I think a lot of people overlooked that, because if you listen to like Heartache, right? So Danny C did the two-step mix of that. You would never link that to Katie B, because the sound is so different. And I think also she was quite young at that time, and I think with certain artists, as they grow, their voice develop, and Katie B is definitely one of those vocalists who her voice has changed a lot over the years, and I think she went from being this kind of prospect into a kind of fully fledged artist in time. It just needed that development. But yeah, she was originally Baby Katie. There you go. It's been educational, mate. I feel like
honestly, that's blown my fucking mind, Rob. You do not believe. You do not believe.
It's like you telling me Aaron Soul did the vocal in that track a minute ago. Whoa!
There we go. Every day we are learning. Every day we're learning. Yeah, I wanted to pose the question. I said this to you earlier. It's like, why do people still strive in garage to get onto Radio 1? Like. And that's a real weird thing to throw out there, but it's like, it seems to still be the pinnacle of everything is to get onto Radio 1. If you're on Radio 1, it's never at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when everyone's driving home from work and your tunes kind of showcased. It's some specialised show of someone that's been cherry-picked to be part of Radio 1. And I don't know why that's the destination to be heralded anymore. They like, are they really the people that are showcasing garage to the highest kind of caliber, or is it just because it's the BBC? Like, I don't know whether it's the same now as it was once upon a time. Everyone seems to be like, oh, Radio 1 play, and if you're getting listed on like an A list or a B list, maybe that's kind of an achievement, but everyone kind of chases that, and I don't know why. I can't remember the last time I listened to Radio 1 casually ever. Like,
I can see where you're coming from. I mean, two things, obviously. And you touched on it a minute ago when you said because it's the BBC. The BBC as I don't want to say brand name, because I don't know if brand name is the right phrase
entity.
To use for entity. As an entity, the BBC it's a big deal, right? Whatever spin you put on it, regardless of whether it's in the middle of the night or in the day, like to be able to say sort of championed on BBC, obviously that's going to look good in your CV. And also in the sense that it's international, right? So even though you're effectively paying for it with your TV license, it kind of goes out on BBC Sounds, and I think it's probably more listened to than other stations. I think there's probably a wider demographic from around the world that still, because it's the BBC, does listen into the BBC. I don't know, I don't know if the listener base is as it was once, as you identified there, but certainly from outside the country, I think there are more listeners that probably listen to the BBC than, say, do other stations. I think the other part to it is that there are only certain stations really where, and this is purely from the money side of things, and I don't think it's that big a deal for artists, but it's certainly a nice plus. There aren't many stations that you can kind of monetize airplay from, but the BBC and Kiss as well, those are two of them. So if you're talking about getting a track played on the BBC, you are talking about making a few quid, albeit a small amount of money. But if you were regularly turning over a track that was getting played every week on the BBC, it would start to add up over time. I don't know whether that plays a big factor in people getting so excited about it. I think it's probably more just the fact that, the BBC as an entity, as you said, has been around forever, is a bit of an institution, and to be able to kind of turn around and go, fuck me, I got a tune played on Radio 1 is... what would the it's interesting, because I was discussing it with a friend the other day, and we were talking about how, like, if you lined up all the radio stations these days, and like the radio stations with a lot of reach, you're probably looking at something like Rinse in terms of it being a kind of more respected, purist, niche musos station, right, is something like Rinse. So in theory, getting a track played on Rinse probably arguably should mean more to you than getting something on the BBC. So I think that's probably what you're getting at when you're saying why people are so fussed about a BBC player. But I think outside of music circles, here's the thing, right? If you're a musician and you're talking to your relatives or your friends who aren't musicians or who aren't music geeks like you and I are, if you say to them, I got a tune played on Rinse, it doesn't mean as much to them as if you say, I got a tune played on Radio 1. That's the crux of it, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Because most people, if you're saying, oh yeah, I got a tune played on such and such a show on this station, it goes over their head. Whereas if you're an artist and you say, I got a tune played on Radio 1, people will take stock of that. So perhaps that's part of it. I don't know. Well, I think it's pretty cool.
You're flagging there that it's more about the bragging rights and the chops. Like it's like if I was making music regularly and getting promoted, would being played on Radio 1 be my ultimate kind of dream? I don't know. I mean, once upon a time, I think when you was making garage, like the first thing you needed to do was get EZ to play your tune. And then when that was kind of happening, you needed to start to get some of the other big DJs to play it. And then it was, okay, how many vinyls can you shift?
Yeah.
You know, and in a digital landscape where music is infinitely disposable and accessible over so many different mediums, and you know, the younger generation are seeing less value in what a radio station is and does. You know, I don't know where Radio 1 sits in that landscape. I think just this is just me and my kind of own personal view, and I kind of can understand it to some level. I think that it doesn't deserve it as much as it used to, and that's my own controversial opinion now.
I see the point you're making, for sure. I will say from the artist perspective, you know, obviously I run Riddler and I run the Riddler Bandcamp. I will say that EZ, I've been privileged enough that EZ has included a few of my tracks recently in his Radio 1 residency, and I definitely see a direct correlation, albeit a subtle one, between that exposure and a sudden influx of people downloading my tunes. So I mean, I don't know what the listener base there is, but it's certainly enough that I notice a difference from the airplay. Nothing that's gonna make me, you know, sell the house and go out and buy a Ferrari by any means, but you know, it is a noticeable. I think you touched on a point there which is very valid when you said about radio stations having less value to the younger generations. I think, and I was discussing this with someone recently, I think Spotify playlists and Deezer playlists, you know, playlisting on streaming platforms is almost the new radio, really, for a new generation of artists, because you're talking about the difference, you know, if you get picked up by even something like one of Spotify's editorial playlists, if you get picked up for one of those, it's the difference between your track maybe getting a few hundred streams and all of a sudden in the space of a month having 30,000 streams. And if you're one of the artists who plays it really well, and I'm fortunate enough that I've been doing some work with Brendan Mills, the guy who did the sax on Blue Step for me. I've done a mix of one of his forthcoming singles, which we're expecting to be massive. He's got very good management that helps him to get onto the relevant, correct playlists for his tunes, to, you know, to appeal to the right demographic. He's an independent artist who works a full-time job, yet he has over 1 million people listen to him monthly on Spotify now. And I feel like in 2021, that's a big deal to shout about. You know, that's more than you're going to get from radio exposure, like you say, you correctly pointed out. You know, in just getting onto those right playlists, you're building your fan base. You're building a fan base of not only listeners but also curators who are then tuned into what you do in future, and therefore more likely to playlist you. And it's a kind of snowball effect. And I've watched Brendan's kind of his audience just gradually snowball over the past couple of years. Yeah, and I'm quite pleased to be kind of working alongside him at the moment, because I'm hoping some of that snowballing fan base kind of falls my way as a result. But time will tell. We shall see. Indeed. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting one.
It's definitely it's that trend of things are changing, and you either kind of get on with the changes or you stick with what you're doing. This is coming from a man that's been doing a radio show for 10 years on the same station and not really changing his process. But yeah, I just thought to myself in my head though, what if someone said to you, all right, you can have a set on Radio 1, would you take it? I don't know, probably would. So
you asking me, or are you saying
no?
someone asked you?
I'm asking myself. It's like I'm cussing it out.
You absolutely would, mate. You absolutely would. You absolutely would, for sure.
But I tell you why it jars me though, right? I think the reason that Radio 1 jars me, and this is outside of the underground shit that they do. Let's just talk about their normal drive time bollocks with whatever happy-go-lucky prick they've got hosting it that day. When they play music, because it needs to appeal to everybody, there's just zero consistency. It seems to like jump from one type to another, and there's no flow to it, like, because they're trying to hit every niche and not offend anyone. Yeah, and
100%.
And I'll listen to it and I'll be like, and off next. I'd rather listen to Heart with the same kind of rinsed classics that are in a similar sort of genre, because it's got a nicer flow to it, you know. I think you're absolutely hitting there on the head there in the sense that you almost don't know what you're getting. You do know what you're getting. You're getting a real random assortment, but you almost don't know what to expect from it, do you? Because it's just, in 1 second you've got Blink 182, and the next minute you're listening to something from the 90s, and then you've got some bang up to date pop tune by the cheesiest of artists. It's strange, because I can't really think of another station that I would say that about. Even something like Kiss, which is a very much a commercial entity and lacks integrity these days, right? You've got a fair idea before you turn Kiss on what their playlist is going to look like. You have a fair idea of what to expect, don't you? You know, and again, they're aiming to be non-offensive and appeal to as wide an audience as they can, but you know what you're getting. Whereas, with Radio 1, it does seem a bit all over the place. As you know, a bit too much talking for my liking, but I'm acutely aware that makes me sound like a very old man saying that. Oh, I wish they'd get on with playing the tunes. Look, they must have their demographic and their audience, otherwise it wouldn't be going as it does. You know, it's not for me, and that's how it is. I just wanted to throw that out there as a thinking point, because it's always baffled me that everyone chases after these Radio 1 plays, but I feel like that's the real bottom of an achievement. It's like, it's great on a CV, but what is that really doing for you in terms of connecting with a fan base? Like, unless you've made a pop song, you're not connecting with a fan base just based on Radio 1.
Yeah. I can see it. Well, tell you what, as a social experiment here, let's earmark those artists that you just read off of that track list in a minute ago, and we'll review this time next year. We'll review where they're at, and if they're all household names, then we know that the BBC Play did something for them.
Yeah, and I can be told to bite my own arse. That's fine. I'm completely down with that. All right. We've probably got a few minutes left to squeeze in our last topic. We've got no feedback this week, so you wanted to drift into talking about, and just this is a complete softball subject, like no tension to it at all. Obviously, political messages in music is
political messages in music. Yeah, I mean, like, no names mentioned, no topics mentioned, because obviously we don't want to get into heated debate over things that are very contentious. But I don't know. I made the observation to you, didn't I, that I feel like political messages in music aren't perhaps as necessary or valid as they once were. I think, you know, in yesteryear, you didn't have your social medias. The internet, it wasn't as prevalent and as important a part of our daily life as it is now. But a lot of the stuff that I hear getting spoken about politically in tracks these days is stuff that actually I'm bombarded with on a daily basis on Twitter and Facebook. And I mean, you and I have both talked about this at length, the fact that, you know, I'm at the point now where I hate social media, and if I didn't have music, I would absolutely 100% not be on any social media at all. And sometimes people get a bit arsey with me because they post something on social media and I don't like or share it, and they go, oh, you're not supporting me the way I do you, man. And I'm like, do you know what, it's nothing personal. It's because I log in, post my shit, and then log off again, because I don't want to see all the bickering and the arguing. And I don't really have any strong opinions one way or another on a lot of the stuff that gets discussed. I just don't care for it. I just don't want to be a part of it. So for me, I look at music as an escape from that and from everything. You know, music is something I do to escape the very depressing reality of daily life. So if I then turn on the radio, Spotify, look at my promos, go on Beatport or whatever, I kind of don't want to hear stuff that's got a political tone to it. I switch off to it immediately. And there have been some examples, I'm not going to give names, don't want to piss anyone off, but there have been some examples probably recently where there are tracks that I might have discussed on the podcast, but where, to be honest, I probably tuned off from them because I heard the content of what they were talking about and it just jarred me, so I skipped to the next track. And I kind of feel like that's a shame, like as an artist, especially when you're discussing certain topics. You know, you've got certain topics like equality, racism, gender equality, you know, sexual preference. Those are are important subjects that I would say probably aren't divisive. You know, I think probably uniformly across the board, we would all agree, well, I would hope that we would all agree that people should be treated with equality regardless of their race, creed, colour, gender, sexual preference, right? There are certain subjects which are, in their very essence, naturally going to be divisive because you're going to have different opinions on them. And I almost feel like as an artist, you run the risk of alienating yourself to a particular audience if you start writing about one of those subjects, because you're going to write something that appeals to Mr. A but massively offends Mrs. B. So in the sense of trying to kind of keep your cards close to your chest, play the right hand and have success as an artist, there's part of it that kind of perplexes me why somebody would take the chance to write a song about something that's potentially so controversial. And then there's another bigger part of me as a listener that just doesn't fucking want to hear it, to be frank. And yeah, I don't know, I just feel like I'm ranting at you and you're looking at me kind of wondering what the fuck I'm going on about. But
no, I'm taking it all in. I'm taking it all
Yeah.
in, Rob, and I agree pretty much with everything you're saying, mate. I mean, you could say it takes bollocks to come down on an issue and talk about it. Yeah, you could say it takes bollocks. You could also say that it's a massive risk because you could be hedging against alienating a massive amount of your fans, as it were. I mean, if you've got a gigantic fan base and you know if you come out against a certain thing, and then you lose 50% of people because of that, then you don't mind because you still got 50% left over. But then there's also the risk of cancel culture nowadays. I'm not going to say I'm for or against cancel culture as what it's been kind of listed as, but you could come out against something and you could get cancelled. All it takes is an amplification of what you've said onto a social platform, and then everyone just starts hating. I mean, we very publicly witnessed Moad get cancelled very, very quickly, and that wasn't over a political issue. That was obviously over something a bit more delicate and horrific. But it shows how quickly, no matter how talented you are, you can lose that in the blink of an eye. And I think that sometimes a political message in a song, or even just coming out and talking on social media to one side of a debate or another, it could get you, it could lose you respect, and get you cancelled. It could also gain you respect on the people on the other side of the argument. That's why political topics are such a, it's a hot potato, and like I said, you've got to have some bollocks to talk about it. But I can go off on Twitter on certain sides of a debate, but I will definitely try not to be preachy about anything. If you choose one thing of one side of an argument and that's you, I'm not going to try and convince you it should be the other side. I'll just maybe judge you and ignore you. I don't know. But I think I'm of an age now where everyone doesn't need to agree with me. It's just like, okay, fine. You believe what you believe. It doesn't affect my life. It's not always like that, which is why you get so many, 10 years, 15 years ago, me would be arguing to the fucking teeth. Oh my God, why do you think that kind of thing? And I think that's why Twitters and Facebooks can turn into this kind of tinderbox of destruction when a bomb like that is kind of dropped, in terms of the topic that's discussed. So I don't know. I'm with you. I'd shy away from it just through safety. I think unless you are someone like Rage Against the Machine that's fighting against the country back in the 90s, I think we're way away from that nowadays, and that kind of sort of political commentary is miles off of kind of where we are now. So
100%. Yeah. I think we're on the same wavelength there. Yeah,
we are. It's a delicate subject. It was nice to kind of kick around the football on it for sure. It would be great to hear what listeners think. Are we pussies? Are we pussies for not saying we stand
lack
on this
bollocks,
side
as you put it, BrainZ? Do we lack the testicular fortitude?
The quantities of testicles subpar to what expected of the In the Garage podcast. Please do write compliments, complaints, feedback to feedback@intheukgarage.com. We don't have any feedback to discuss this month because we didn't get any. Please do email us. We love reading them. We love responding. Thanks to people that have been tapping up on the socials, @In the UK Garage on all the socials, and we're on all the podcatchers and all that shit. Don't forget, In the Garage recommends playlist in the ukgarage.com/recommends. And I think that's it, Rob. Anything else we want to throw out there?
No, nicely done, mate. I think you've summarised it all nicely. We've gone through some hot topics. We've discussed some good tunes. I think we're done. It's all good.
Blinding, mate.
Yeah, I want to go sleep, mate. I'm knackered.
It's been difficult carving out this window of time for us to do this. So thanks for making the being able to spend some time doing this, man. I love chatting with you. Great to catch up.
Yeah, always a pleasure, mate.
Closing it down then. Thank you. Until next time, in the UK Garage on the socials, in the ukgarage.com. Big it up. Peace out.
Laters.
Play the tune, man. Play the tune.
You get me? In the garage with Phonetix and BrainZ.